David Spada is a successful attorney whose dream was to become a sports talk show host. Elliott Harris is a Chicago sports columnist who wanted to expand his media presence. In the next hour, they combine their talents and love of sports and women by interviewing former professional athletes and lovely ladies on sports and torts. But keeping the boys out of trouble isn't always easy, because when David and Elliott are together, they have more fun than should be legal.
Welcome to another edition of Sports and Torts. I'm David Spada along with my co-host Elliott Harris. And this week we're spending the whole hour with Rosey Grier. Rosey made a name for himself playing for the New York Giants and Los Angeles Rams. He was one of the fearsome foursome, but he also had quite a career off the field. Let's get right to the conversation we had with Rosey Grier.
So I see you were born in Georgia. Did you live in Georgia your whole life till you went to college at Penn State?
No, I lived in Georgia until I was age 11, and I got to go to school 3 days a week. And the rest of the days I had to beg my dad, but he wouldn't let me go to school. He wanted me to work in the field. I worked in the field. I shook cotton. I picked peanuts, and I plowed. I did all those things because, and I had brothers and sisters, and I was really interested in going to school, but he wouldn't let me go. I had to do the work. And then when I went to school, I had to get up early in the morning and do all my chores out in the field, like water the hogs and stuff like that. And then when I came home from school, I'd go right to work. And so, yeah, I was born in Georgia, and I got to go 3 days a week. And then when we moved to New Jersey, I was so happy because there you had to go to school until you were 16. So I had school, man. I went to school, and the kids laughed at me because I was way behind in everything, and I had this accent. And I was supposed to throw it. I said, choke it. It was amazing but I was behind. So I was behind in everything. But that was a teacher named Mrs. Spring. Mrs. Spring kept telling me, she kept encouraging me. They had a friend that I got to know. The name was John Grossi. John Grossi was a straight A student. And I said, man, how you doing that? He said, because I'm smart. I said, how can I do it? He said, you're not smart like me. He said, but you could do better. So I became a book hog. I was always in the book studying, learning, trying to catch up. And he got all A's and I got A's and B's. But I took a non-college preparatory classes. No one told me about going to college. And then one day the coach asked me, I'm a big guy, why don't I come out and play with the big boys? I didn't know what he was talking about. But anyway, I went out to play with the big boys. And I put my glasses down on the field while I went inside to get my my uniform. And as I got the uniform, I came back out to where my glasses were at. Then I played football over them. So they were broken, and I was really mad. They said, "Well, you put your glasses on the field." I said, "Yeah, but you guys were down there, then down there." So I went without glasses for a little time until I got money to get some more glasses, and so I worked there. My dad was sick. He'd been working at a chemical company. And he had got very sick. My mom was a domestic worker, and so we lived with my brother-in-law. We lived in the basement, and but I graduated from high school, and none of my family came to see me graduate because they weren't interested in graduation. They weren't interested in my football playing. And I found out from my baby brother not many years ago that one of his people that he knew was asking my dad about me, and my dad said, "Oh, that boy, he ain't gonna amount to nothing. He's playing that football and stuff like that. He's always out there playing those games. So he's not gonna amount to anything." And so anyway, that's I got grades enough that I was able to take the college entrance exam. I took the entrance exam, and I didn't know a lot of the stuff, but I got enough grades to go to Penn State. And I went to visit a lot of other schools, and I went to Virginia. And the first time in my life I ever saw a black woman with blue eyes, and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And I went to go to the Virginia State because of the blue-eyed girl. And then I went to Penn State, and they never even spoke to me about football. They spoke to me about graduating from school. I really love that because that was my main interest. Is I wanted to get an education, and I wanted to get it from a school that had a reputation. And so I went to Penn State. I didn't know what to take because we took an examination, and I scored very low on that examination. So they recommended some courses, some curriculum. But I wanted to play music. I wanted to be in music because I was a singer. So they put me on a cello. Now remember, I'm going into music. I never ever studied one day of music in my life. I knew nothing about anything, no chord, no notes, no anything. And they put me with a cello. Well, that was showing me quickly the back door. And so the kids were very helpful in trying to keep me up with the class. I couldn't keep up because I was too far behind. Kids in my class had been studying music for years, like 5-6 years from high school or grammar school. And so I switched to physical education and psychology. And that's what I got my degree in.
Now, you come from a large family. Did the entire family migrate north to New Jersey? And
no, all but one brother.
Okay. What brought about?
Some went to Harrisburg, and some went to New Jersey. And my older brother stayed in Georgia because he was married in Georgia. His name was Boy. We called him Boy, but his name was Mose. And yeah. So none of
a transition from the deep South to New Jersey. What was that like?
Well, I never played with white kids. I never, spent time with white kids, and I always kind of learned from Georgia to stay away from white people. And then when I got to New Jersey, it was all mixed school, and I didn't really spend time with the white kids till later on, as I got to know them, and we got to play football together, we got to talk together. Then one of my greatest friends was a guy named Einstein. And it was a Jewish kid there on a deli, and I got to know him, and all the way up until he died a few years ago. Anytime I go back east, I go by and visit with him. And a number of other guys, we all kind of stayed friends together over all the years. And but I got to where it didn't matter to me what color you were. I'd heard all the names that you could hear, and they were just words to me. They didn't mean nothing to me. So a person called me a name didn't make me mad. Didn't make me angry because I knew who I am. So once you know who you are, you don't have to worry what someone else call you, because you already know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That if they call you something and you get angry about that, that means you accepted it, and I don't accept it.
It doesn't
bother me.
Yeah, it's more a reflection on the person. It's more a reflection on the person's who is uttering those words than it is on the person who is the target of those words.
Well, unless the person that's saying it and the person who is saying it to receives it, I don't receive it. So I don't have to get angry because I didn't receive it.
So how did you start playing football at Penn State?
I went there on a track scholarship. And, but I knew I was going to play football. So I became football player with the football team. And our first couple of games, they wouldn't let me play. I didn't even dress for the game, but as the season went on, I got to play both ways, tackle both ways. And I played both ways throughout the whole my career at Penn State.
And you were at Penn State before Joe Paterno was their head coach.
No, Joe Paterno came there with Rip Engel from Brown. He was a quarterback at Brown under Rip Engel, so Rip Engel brought him to Penn State to teach him the wing T.
What sort of coach was Rip Engel?
Great. He was a great coach. He was a a very nice man. He was well organized, and I learned a lot playing under Rip Engel. And so it was great for me to play under him.
And you had a great teammate.
Joe Paterno was a basketball coach too. Lenny Moore and Jesse Yarnell, and many other guys. They were all great guys. But Lenny Moore was a Hall of Fame. Jesse Yarnell got to be a big-time lawyer, and there were a lot of other guys I can't call Danny DeFalco or Gene Dancer, Bob Schneider, and I can't. There's so many guys I can't remember them like that.
Did you anticipate being drafted by the NFL?
Well, yeah, but I wasn't thinking about playing pro ball. Because every time I get a letter from one of the teams asking me would I like to play on that team, I write it back and tell them no. I said, on one team I want to play on, that's the New York Giants. So every time they got a letter back saying I want to play one team, New York Giants. I was really setting myself up to negotiate, wasn't I? Yeah, no, I didn't know anything about negotiating. So they knew that they got me. So what happened when the Rams drafted me in the third round, I was traded to the New York Giants with Andy Robustella and Del Schaffner. I was that third-round draft choice that they threw in.
That's a pretty good trade for the Giants.
Yeah, sure was.
Was there a lot of, in your college team, were the black players and the white players friendly, or did they have to live in separate rooms, or did they share rooms, or was there a lot of segregation there?
There was, I don't think that was, well, we didn't hang out together, but I was in a fraternity called Alpha Phi Alpha, and we didn't have a house, so we did a lot of our activity with the white fraternities, and I got to make friends with wherever I went to, because I was always reaching out to get to know the other guys and to play with my teammates and to be an encouragement. And I got to be the captain of the track team up at Penn State, and yeah. But once the coach called me, because one of the girls that was in one of my classes, her dad was a professor, and so they would call me over to their house, and I have food over there, and then they teach me, try and catch me up on my academics. And so one day a coach called me one Sunday morning. He said, I understand you've been seeing a white girl. I said, what do you mean? He said, you've been seeing I said, look, man, I said, I make friends with whomever I want to. I said, her parents invited me over to their house to help me with my academics. And I said, nobody tell me who I could be friends with. And that was the end of that for me.
Yeah, because we talked to Lenny Moore, and he described the situation as somewhat difficult for an African American man at Penn State. To get for basic things like to get a haircut and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, everyone goes through things differently. I was born in the South, and I knew white people, so I thought. So I didn't mess around with I just stayed in my own area and kind of be friendly when I could, and the rest of the time I made my mind up a long time ago to love everyone and to serve my fellow man. That was my dream, and serving my fellow man. And so I was always very friendly with everyone, and so I never had a problem with anybody.
And then you were with the Giants there, and I read Frank Gifford's book, and he basically said that the Giants, they lived in the hotels, and it was a great time because they could go out every night, party after practice, and it was like basically a 24-hour party.
Well, what I didn't do was with the New York Giants, I didn't go out and party. And Frank was a pretty boy on the team. In fact, a lot of the guys, because Frank was so good looking and he was getting everything, and a lot of the guys didn't like Frank, but I loved Frank. Frank was a nice man, and I used to talk to Frank all the time. In fact, I talked to him, he and his son, a couple of days ago, and I always talked to Frank, and so I thought I was going to have a hard time with the New York Giants because they was very integrated in terms of blacks and whites, and most of the whites was from the South. And, man, I thought I was going to have a horrible time. And Jim Lee Howell was from, I think, from Arkansas, who's the head coach. And then I saw Charlie Connor from Mississippi and all these guys, Kyle Rote from Texas, and Sam Huff from West Virginia. And I thought I was going to have a hard time. No trouble at all, because I went there with the attitude that these were my teammates and that they weren't better than I was. I was as good as anybody that I meet. And so I just started out by doing what I do. I was friendly, but I never tried to be friendly with the coaches. And anytime a ball player was on my team, I'd reach out to them, and anytime there was trouble brewing, I tried to stop it. Anytime there was my teammates would deliberately try to hurt somebody on the other team, I'd stop it, because I never wanted to win a game by using tactics that were not according to the game. Because if you do that, then there's no game. You got tactics going, and people are deliberately going out trying to hurt the other guy. And I didn't like that, and I didn't want to play with a team like that. And so anytime I found my guys trying to hurt Jim Brown, I was in there. I was stopping it. And once I had Johnny Unitas with both his legs trapped under him, and all I had to do was take him down, and both his knees would have been broken. And they said, take him down. I said, I'm coming up. And so I'd come up, and they said, what's wrong with you? I said, I'm not hurting that man for no football game. So I brought him up. And Jim Brown will tell you how many times I saved him out on the football field. So I wanted to play the game. I wanted to play hard, but I wanted to play fair, always fair. And realizing that in the long run, these guys will make it a living for their family. So why would you go out and hurt a man who's working for his family just like you are? It didn't make sense. So I didn't get involved in that stuff.
Okay. At what point in your career did you say to yourself, I can play at this elite level professionally?
I had no doubt. No, I had no doubts, because I started out my first game. I started out as the defensive tackle for the Giants. I didn't play behind no one ever. I was always first team. And
Giants were loaded with great players. Like you said, Robustelli was on that team. You had
he was on my right defensive tackle. And Cat Cabbage and Mo Gillespie and I all played on the. We were the front four in New York, and we were the one that started the blitz, the twisting and all those kind of things, the red dogs and all that stuff. Tom Landry gave us a whole system of playing defense, and we played a lot of games where we won by 7, or we won by 2, or we won by 5. But we played close game. Team had very hard to whip us, and because we had such great defensive personnel. And I always tell Sam Huff, after Sam, we made you a Hall of Famer because our job was to keep people off of Sam Huff. I remember we were playing one game, and 3 guys was blocking me from Green Bay, and they were driving me back. He said, "Rosey, why are you getting into my way?" I said, "Sam, I got 3 guys blocking me. How many blocking you?" It was fun, man. It was, after a while, I'd be out there and I'd be talking. I remember once we were playing the Baltimore Colts, and they ran a silly draw play on my side, and every time they set it up, I tear it up. And so I said to Lenny Moore was the guy I was getting all the time. I said, "Hey, Lenny, man, they're trying to kill you, man, because every time you get the ball, I'm tearing you up." He said, "I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back." He always came back too. So it was fun game, and you learn to talk. After you relax, well, you know that you are a player, and you just go out there and laugh and talk and play the game.
And you guys, with the Giants, had a lot of success.
In 7 years with the New York Giants, I played in 5 World Championship games.
And one of the most memorable was the 1958 game against the Colts.
Yes.
What was that like?
I only played the first quarter because the week before I hurt my knee, and so they knew I had hurt my knee. When they came out, they played something like called the hurry up game, and they spread way out. And so our defense had to get up and move fast to get over there. But we laughed at them when they ran those kind of plays because they didn't know that our defense, if we didn't even have to go in the huddle to play our defense. If they played in any offense they got into, we had an automatic play. If they ran something we didn't know, we were gonna blitz it. And so we could always laugh. Maybe try to run these quick plays on us. Heck, we could stand on the line and run our plays, and all the guy had to say black, blue, red, or brown, and we already knew what to do.
You mentioned your assistant coach, Tom Landry. You also had Vince Lombardi, who was the offensive coordinator, and we talked to Herb Adder last month, and he said that Vince was a great guy, that basically when they were in Green Bay, he made sure that they were safe, and he stuck up for them, and there was not a racist bone in that guy's body.
Well, I can't tell you what's in his body. I know he was a great coach, but, I mean, I can't go inside of him and tell you what was in there. You can only tell from outside what you feel that was in there. I knew Vince Lombardi, and when I knew Vince, every time Vince would holler at someone, he'd turn around and look at Jim Lee Howe and say, "Isn't that right, Jim?" And Jim Lee Howe would say, "Yeah." And he didn't have the boldness that he had with the Green Bay Packers that he had because with the New York Giants, Jim Lee Howe was the head coach. So Vinny Lombardi always acknowledged Jim Lee Howe when he was chewing a ball player out. But he was a great coach.
You mentioned Jim Brown. A lot of people said he was the greatest player that ever played. Do you agree with that?
He was the greatest player ever played.
What made him so great? Just his size and his quickness, or could he do everything?
Jim Brown was tough. He was very fast, and he was very good at finding the holes, and everyone was trying to stop him. And the reason why the New York Giants beat him all the time was that we found out keys that he gave when he was carrying the ball. So he had automatic keys. If he's going to run one play a certain way, he'd be in a certain position. And so we found those keys out, and we were always ready for him. And of course, I remember one time they set up a draw, and I jumped on him in the backfield. And next thing I know, I was down. I had to bite him on the leg to make him stop. But he went down. But I was down the field 5 yards, and I caught him in the backfield. He was that strong. You got to get his leg stopped. You can't hang on his body because he carry you.
Well, and he was almost the size of the defensive linemen who were trying to tackle him too.
Well, no, I don't. Well, yeah, not that many though, because I was as big as myself, Big Daddy, and guy from Chicago Bears, Les Bingham. Was it Les Bingham? Somebody like Les Bingham was like 330, and the other guy I talked about was the other big guy. So it was three of us that was the biggest in there. And mine, because I was always overeating.
There was a lot of good restaurants to eat in New York, though.
Oh, yeah, man. But I was a soul food man. I'd go to soul food restaurants, and I'd eat order pork chops with rice and gravy, and the next thing I know, before I finished it, I ordered another one. Now, that was dumb. I mean, I was overeating.
You mentioned you had a Jewish friend. He didn't get you eating corned beef?
No, not really, no. Alvin Einstein, he had a village grocery, village bakery, and I called he just died not too long ago, and I talk to his daughter every once in a while now. He really was a lovely guy, and he was always supportive of what I was doing always, and he called me and we talked on the phone, and that went on all of his life.
And then you're very successful in New York, and next thing you know, you get traded to the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah,
how was that transition?
They broke my heart. It was like your family said, we don't want you. And I felt very bad about that. But I went to the Rams, and the Rams was a mess. Black ball players didn't like black ball players, and none of them liked the whites didn't like some of the whites, and neither one of them loved each other. And they kept telling me about don't mess with those guys, man. Those guys are prejudiced. And they told me that one guy in particular, a guy named Red Phillip. They said Red Phillip was prejudiced. And so I go talk to Red Phillips all the time. I talk to him. And Red Phillip was a nice guy. And one day they got in an argument on the field, and one on a black defensive ball player, and Red called him a nigger. And of course, everybody got upset, and Red came over and he apologized to me. And I said, well, did you call me a nigger? He said, no. I said, well, why are you apologizing to me? Go tell the guy that you said it to. If you want to apologize. I said, that's how you deal with that. You didn't bother me because I already know who I am. So go tell the guy that who you said it to. I mean, you said it because you were angry about the way he was playing you. So you blurted it out, and I know you didn't mean to do that, but that's part of the racist thing. So you go and apologize to him, not me. And so he did. So I mean, people put a handle on a guy, and he make mistakes, and they put a handle on it. It sticks, and not that it should, but it does. People get an opinion about you, and they throw that opinion out there and the next thing, everybody's got it, and it's not right.
How did Deacon Jones and Lamar Lungley deal with that type of situation?
Well, I don't know how they dealt with it. I know how I dealt with it. I can't tell you. We had no problem. We loved each other. Me and Deacon and Merlin Olsen, we were together from the time we started playing in L.A. until Merlin died, until Lamar died. We were always together. If you ask one guy to do it, you can get to all four of them. We're always supportive of one another. because we loved one another.
You were the fearsome foursome. Do you remember who came up with that name?
One of the guys from the Rams. I forgot who his name. I think it was. I'm not going to try to call his name, but it was the public relations office. They made it up.
Okay.
They came up with that, fearsome foursome, and that stuff. We liked it, and also we always said it ourselves also. And then we all began to say we're the best, we're the greatest. And everybody else began to say it too. And so we always said, anytime you talk about the fearsome foursome, we were the greatest defensive line ever hit the football field. And we got 2 Hall of Fames out of that, on that team. That's Deacon and Merlin. And there could probably be more, but after I became my first year, I was second team All-American, and in my second year in the pros, I was unanimously All-Pro, and then I went into the Army for 2 years. And and when I was out of that for 2 years, another guy get to be first team, and you just, so I was just like second team a lot of years, and so. And Lamar London was a great ball player. We had great potential. These guys, all of these guys, and so I loved all of them. And so Merlin and Deacon, they pushed them to be Hall of Fame, and they became Hall of Famers, and they would deserve it also, by the way. And so I had no envy of them, and but I realized also that. Because of my disruption of time, because I had to go in the Army for that time, that I wasn't able to stay there and stay on top until I came out. And when I came out, the first year out of the Army, I hurt my arm, so I played a whole year, actually a half a year with one arm. But I went out there on the field and played with one arm.
Deacon mentioned to us that he got a bonus for every sack he got. He was paid $500 per sack. Did you have a similar thing in your contract?
No. And I don't think Deacon, well, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. And who would have paid him?
Till this day, Deacon still says he was the greatest defensive player ever, defensive lineman ever.
Deacon Jones was a great defensive lineman, and the head slap was what I taught him. He learned that from me, and he said, well, I perfected it.
How did you come up with the idea of the head slap?
I was playing in the All-Star game out here, and I wanted to get to the quarterback quick, and I saw that I couldn't get there like I wanted to, so I had to fake the lineman, make him go one way and slap him with the other hand and get past him before he could turn around and get to me. So if I faked to the right and he stepped that way, I slapped him with the left hand, and then I put my right hand between he and I, and he couldn't catch me because I'd be in the backfield. So I made that move in the All-Star game, and then I just started doing a lot, and then I used to practice, and if I didn't want to mess around with a guy on the field, I'd head slap and I'd be by him. So that's where I did it all the time, and finally Deacon started using, and Deacon started hitting him with both hands, Deacon, and so Deacon learned that from me.
Now, George Allen was your coach with the Rams. What was he like?
George Allen was strictly football man. He didn't want to talk about nothing but football. And if you want to talk to George, you talk about football. And but he was dedicated. He was an excellent coach. He coached every phase of the game. He developed every phase of the game. And he said that one phase that you don't develop, that's the phase that you lose the game. But you win the game by developing all the phases of the game, and that's what he did. He worked on every phase of the game always. And so he was a very thorough man in getting a team ready. And so all the ball players had a lot of respect for him. And he would always have that rah-rah spirit, always.
How did you end up, after you retired, getting your own TV show, the Rosey Grier Show on ABC?
I had broken my Achilles tendon And I was coming off of that season. I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to go back, and I went up and started practicing with Merlin and Deacon, and we were going to have a holdout that year. We were going to ask for $1 million for the four of us, and I think Kay Stevens, an actress, a singer somewhere, told us that we ought to do that because we were a big name and all that. So we were going to hold out for $1 million. Except I was coming off of my broken Achilles tendon after about a year. And I was out working out with Merlin and Deacon one day, and Merlin's daughter, Kelly, was running faster than I was.
That's not good.
And then I had gotten involved in the campaign with Senator Kennedy, and I was with him when he was assassinated, and so I decided that I needed to work on something, the real thing, because football was a football world and there was a real world going on around us, and I wanted to try to do something else to try to stop the killing. So I was having to be up in Hollywood, and a gentleman met me and said, you ought to come on to ABC. We got the FCC.
Yes, FCC.
Yeah, they had a mandate out that each city, each state should have a show hosted by someone of color, so that they could more or less talk about what's going on in that neighborhood. So they chose me. I went and had a meeting with them and had Ron, I can't think of Ron's last name. Ron was my agent, and went up there, and they chose me to do it. And Jim Baker was my producer. And we had everybody. After a while, everybody wanted to come on, and Mickey Rooney, had Bob Hope, and everybody came on my show. And we was on about 3 or 4 years, and then we tried to go network, and it just didn't do it. We thought we had won the Emmy one time, and someone else won it. And then little by little, it just faded out. But it was a good show, and I was very afraid in the beginning. But then as I got more experience, then it became very easy to do, and I loved doing it. But I didn't want to read on cue cards. I wanted to do it from memory, and because I felt like when you read things, you're reading it. Like I used to always fuss about the president. When they get up, the speech, they're reading a speech, and they say, oh, what a great speech. And I said, that was no great speech. That was a great reading. And so I wanted to do, so I kind of skipped over a lot of things they wrote and instead put my words in there. And I got adjusted to it, if I could do it, and it wasn't bad.
How did you end up being a bodyguard for Ethel Kennedy?
It was just everybody was, all of Bobby's friends since he came, the time, this was the time when kids was going around saying they call them policemen names and stuff like that. And so they didn't want to show any military type persons or people around. So his friends would do the thing that had to be done. That particular night, I was signed Ethel to keep her because she was pregnant. So I was signed to stay with her. And so I stayed with her, and then we went up on the stage. When they finished, they were supposed to come back to me. But when they was coming back to me, and because he was bringing Ethel back to me, and then we was going to go off to the right, but there was some confusion, and Bobby jumped off the back of the stage, which means I had to get Ethel off the back of the stage. And Bill Barry, who was in charge of all the senators' movement, he had to help me get Ethel down, and then got Ethel down, and we all was going forth to catch up, and a cameraman almost hit Ethel in the back with the camera, and I blocked him from hitting her, and as he went past us, shots rang out, and Ethel always would freeze up when there was kind of loud noise around her. So I put my arms around her and held her for a few seconds. And then I took off running to see what was going on up there. When I ran forward, I saw these guys fighting with Sirhan. They didn't have control of him. So to me, to get control, you need to stop the action. So I went and I grabbed his legs and put him up on a table, and George Plimpton was struggling trying to get the gun out of his hand. And after I got his leg locked and wrapped so he couldn't kick, I'm looking at George Plimpton, and he can't get the gun out. And he's got the gun pointed toward his own face. So I put my hand under the trigger housing, and then I pulled the hammer back and put my thumb under there, and I just rinsed it out and put it in my pocket. And later on, after they'd taken everybody away, I was sitting on the floor and I was crying, and Rayford Johnson came up and asked me, did I have the gun? I said, yeah. And he said, well, give it to me. And so I gave it to him, and he walked away with another guy, and I was all finished. So I went upstairs to watch, what was going on. They were all crying up there and wringing their hands and all that stuff. And so I decided, well, I'm going home. So the time I got home and walked in the house, my wife said, you can't come home. Ethel Kennedy called for you to come down to the hospital. And so that's when I went down to the hospital. But I hope that answered your question, because I was all over that one.
No, I didn't realize everything that happened that night.
So that's how I was told to take care of her that night. That's why I was with her. And when we weren't really bodyguard, we were friends. And when everyone started calling bodyguard, there's no need to try to stop it. Just let people say that. We used to always try to say we were not bodyguard, we were friends. But there's no need, so we just let them go with it.
I assume at some point you had become active in politics.
No, I never been active in politics other than supporting people. I supported, in other words, if I campaigned for a guy, like I campaigned with Bush, whoever ran against Clinton.
Oh, geez.
And so when Clinton won, I wrote him a letter and told him that I had campaigned for the other man, and he had won by the people's majority, and that if he needed me to do anything, I'm ready. So I finally got a letter back from him. He said, about time. So I knew him from before. I knew him with President Carter. I knew that he and I went walking one night in Washington, D.C. without a dinner at the White House. And I used to see him, when he was governor. And I talked to him, sometime in the hotel I see him and we'd talk. And so I knew him. So, but, you get involved because you find out that you think that you are insignificant. And then I realized that I was not insignificant. And it's my country. And I have a right, and it's my duty to get involved in the political processes. Otherwise, you don't have one. And so I urge everyone that's listening to your program, register and vote. I don't care who you vote for, but vote. Make sure that your voice is heard. And then when things are going wrong that you don't like, you say, well, what did I do about it? Well, if you voted and you got involved, you try to do something about it. But you remember, the president cannot do it by himself. He needs every citizen to do their part in making a difference in our society.
Did you ever think that we'd have a black president of the United States?
No. I never even. I tell you one time I knew who was president. Carter came. Ford. I knew that this country was open to any man who could speak that with intelligence towards what he believed this country was about. And I started out the campaign, I think, with Senator Muskie, but everywhere I went, I saw President Carter's people, and so I wouldn't do anything. I just kept going with this guy. And then when President Carter won, I won the primary. I got involved in his campaign. One night I was sitting in the house. I had a belief that I would not get involved with any political person unless I had a chance to talk with them personally. And I talked one night. I got a call from President Carter, and I talked about him, and I got to be friends with him. And I got a call one time from President Reagan, but I never called. I got a call from Obama. I wrote him a couple of letters after he was president, and I talked about the drum major that we needed in this nation. But he never ever responded to me. I still haven't heard anything from him even yet. Yet I expect in a few weeks, I think I can solve one of his problems, but I can't do it until I'll be ready in a few weeks. That I want to call and try to make a meeting with him, because I think I can help him solve a problem. And the problem is about no work for the inner cities. No, people don't have jobs and stuff. I have a concept, and I think it works. I know it works, but I want to make sure I get it all together yet. And then I'm going to call to have a meeting with him. First, I'm going to meet with Mike Milken, and because Mike Milken is a very smart man, and I want Michael to. Michael already have an overview of it already. So when I get the financial figures in, then I'm gonna ask a meeting with the president and show him the concept and why it works, and why the one that they had didn't work, because it was anyway. I'll have it in a few weeks.
Now I want to know how you got involved in needlepoint, because I remember Rosey Grier needlepointing, and I thought it was so wonderful, because here you have this giant man doing what back in the day people would say, well that's for a woman to do. That's a woman's thing. That's a sissy. So first of all, I didn't care what anyone called me, because as I said, the thing is known who you are. So anyway, I'm driving down the street one day, and I see all these incredible women going into this shop. So I pulled my car over and got my guitar out of the car, put it on my back, and I went into this shop. It was called Jebba's, with a needlepoint shop. So I go into Jebba's. I stop a couple of ladies, and I said, "Can I see that?" And they look at it, and I look on the back. I said, "Well, you got you don't have enough. You got too much bulge in the back." And so I kept going around doing that and talking, and then the girls in the shop said came over to me and said, "Rosey, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to learn how to needlepoint." So that's okay. So I went down and started. They started teaching me the continental stitch. So I was doing that and going until I got to be pretty good at it. And then they wanted me to take a picture with a society lady. Can't think of her name, but anyway, they want me to take a picture with this lady. So it was just going to be for a local, and we went to this a club, that a health club, and they didn't want me in there, so they wouldn't let me in the health club to take a picture with this lady. And her husband was chairman of the board of tobacco company. Jones, something I can't think of. Anyway, so they wouldn't let me in there, and so we went to another place, and they let us sit in there, and they took a picture of she and I sitting there, and I was doing needlepoint, and she was doing needlepoint, and then next thing I know, it was headlines in the New York society section, and man, I got phone calls from guys who saying I'm blowing the image of guys, and I said, well, if by my doing this makes you feel low as an athlete, I said that's really dumb, because what you do don't make you who you are. I said I'm just doing something I like. But I was meeting all the incredible women, and it was just great, man. And so that's how I got involved. And then finally, I got a call from a lady in New York. They wanted to do a book with me. And I said, oh, no, I'm not going to do no book. I'm out there far enough. And I had done a picture. They were supposed to do a picture of me to go into, like, Look magazine, one of those magazines. Yeah. And they took the picture. But they did, like, you could pull it out. There's a big old picture of me sitting there Needlepoint. And I was bugged. Oh, my goodness. And so now I'm really getting bugged by this. People done the Needlepoint book. So finally I agreed to do a book. It's called Needlepoint for Men. I did that book. And, man, the guys razz me. And it didn't bother me whatsoever because I did what I wanted to do. And I came out with Needlepoint, my own Needlepoint set. And so it was just good. It was good. So I did a lot of stuff, and a lot of time I send stuff away to be in, people want to see it, and I never got it back. So, you don't just do things. And I did a caricature of Sammy Davis in his many performance acts, and we worked over a year to do it. And after we got it done, I wanted to give it to Alta V's. And the lady that I did it with, she took it and left. I never seen it no more. But that's how I got involved, because I saw these incredible women in there. And that's why I did it. And then I liked it.
Rosey, my daughter's got her two friends over. They got a question for you. She wanted to know why the white and black players didn't spend time together off the field. Well,
because they usually, white ball players will have their own special place that they like to go, and a lot of the places didn't really accept the black ball players, and so a lot of they were not close friends. A lot of the black and white ball players were not close friends, and so they didn't do things together, and it should never have to be that way. It shouldn't matter what color you are. Merlin and I and Deacon and Lamar, we always did a lot of things together. Mike Henry and I, there was a lot of guys that were very close. See, it doesn't matter what color you are, but people have a tendency to go with their own color. I didn't. My son is part white and part black, so I didn't go along with it, and a lot of people didn't go along with it. My wife was white. She died 2 years ago.
Society's changing because they're in fourth grade and they don't understand it.
Yeah. Well,
yes, they don't know the world that you grew up in.
Yeah, but see, the kids, if they're not taught by the people that they're watching, they won't even pay no attention because it doesn't make any difference to them. But grown-ups throwing words around, things around, and acting certain ways, the kids pick it up saying what they said, and they don't even know what they mean. And they just do it because someone else was doing it or saying it. And so they get caught up in the same thing. They don't mean to, but we've influenced them by the way we act. Like in the newspaper a lot of time, when you read a newspaper and they said such a thing happened, he was a black man, or the black person did this. But they write about other people, they don't put that down there. See, you can watch and see the attitude that some newspaper have by painting it was this race of people that did that. It's just like when Bobby Kennedy announced that Martin Luther King was assassinated, and then he was in Indianapolis. And when the people riled up, he said, well, if you're going to get mad and fight white people, then I should be mad fighting white people too, because it was a white man that killed my brother. And so he broke down those barriers of hating white people just by letting his brother was killed also by a white man. So it was an assassin. Excuse me. It was assassin's choice, and it had nothing to do with the color. And so little by little, a lot of things are going away.
I'll tell you what, if you want to meet President Obama, I know two other guys who have been big in the community trying to help, Jim Brown and Fred Williamson. Bring them in.
Yeah, I know Jim Brown very well. And I know that I want to help America. My interest is not to help the president so much as help my responsibility for the country. My desire is to help the country, but I need the support of the president. I don't need it because what the idea, the concept that I have, I need the athletes to get involved with me, and that's all. That's what I need. But it would be a great thing for the president to get involved because it's going to solve a major problem that he's going through right now.
I have one more question. I want to know how you became involved in the Free to Be You and Me with Marlo Thomas and friends. I want to know if you're a better singer than Lem Barney.
Lem Barney's pretty good. That's what he told us. I had my own band, and I was traveling all over the country, and I was singing at a Playboy Club in Atlanta. And Marlo Thomas and I got to be friends because, I was doing a series with her dad, Danny Thomas. And so she came down to Atlanta where I was working, and they said they got a song they want me to sing called "It's All Right to Cry." And so I sang that song in that. But they didn't want me to sing it. They want me to just barely sing it. They want me to try to sing it, but to sing it for young people. So I sang it the way they want me to sing it. And so that's how I got involved in because it made a difference to telling the kids that it is all right. And it is. It's all right to cry.
And to hear it come from a big, former football player, you think, okay, you're a macho guy, but regardless of what your size and who you are, you have a right to have emotions to go along with that. And
absolutely.
Just because, even big guys can cry. And
they ought to cry. A lot of guys ought to cry because emotionally, if you think that because you're big you shouldn't cry, you're just messed up right there because you have a deal. You freeze yourself when you cry. It relieves the tension that's going on. It's like boiling over. Mm-hmm. You let it come out in tears. A lot of people let it come out in anger. And that's why you see a lot of these kids shooting and all this kind of stuff because they didn't find a way to get that bitterness that was in their heart out. So they take and they try to do it another way, and they're doing it the wrong way. And if you just cry, all that bitterness will be over, but then people have no right to be going around calling people names and all those kind of things. It's just like people always getting angry because the person is of another, whether he's gay or straight. We don't have a right to jump on anybody because of anything. If anything, me being a believer, I'm a minister, I need to try to save the lost, not go out and try to get mad at people and tell them how bad they are. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to try to tell the people about the Lord, and they have a right to make their own decision.
Thanks to Rosey Grier for spending the entire hour with us. I'm David Spada, along with my co-host Elliott Harris. Join us again next week for another edition of Sports and Torts here on TalkZone.com.